Epstein Island is their birthright. I want y'all to think about that. I want you to think about it. Because the thing about a Pluto return, the thing about witnessing a country, an empire, in its death throes, is watching as its worst horrors come to light. And these aren't new horrors, right? When they say, let's make America great again, they're talking about how they used to eat people that look like me, how they used to take our hair. And I'm not doing any trigger warnings. Deal with it. They used to put our hair into chairs, right? The most horrible things you could think of that are happening, that happened on Epstein Island, that's the story of this country. And guess what? It was a story for longer than it hasn't been. One of the most effective things they've done to our minds is made us think that this was so far in the past and that it's all over and done with. But the civil rights movement is living memory, right? And that was only a few legislations. And that's against a backdrop of hundreds and hundreds of years of the most grotesque horrors that Epstein Island couldn't even envision. And the thing is now, it's the imperial boomerang, but you could call it the white supremacist boomerang. You could call it, the evil boomerang, essentially, right? It's the stuff that white America allowed to happen to black and brown people coming back. And now you see these pictures of these, little white children that it's happened to, that were trafficked. And I don't say that to be callous. And because that's another thing, is that when people point out that this is stuff that we've been talking about, that has long been happening, people are like, well, this is not the time to say, I told you so. Yeah, actually, it kind of is, right? Because we're allowed to be pissed that we have been dealing with this for our entire existence. And y'all are just tuning in, right? We're allowed to be upset about that. And part of that healing is people who are just tuning in, taking the L and being like, you know what? I was dead wrong for not knowing, for not acting, for not doing more. That's part of the healing. Part of the healing is having humility and being able to say, fuck, I should have known and I didn't. And I'm sorry and I'm here. Right? Healing doesn't come by papering things over. Right? It's like Malcolm X, Malik Shabazz said, you can't, take a knife out of my back a few inches if you stuck it in 4 inches and call that healing, right? You have to take it out and acknowledge the blow that has been made and then do the whole process of healing, right? There's a whole process and we're undergoing that process right now. And it's a rough one. It really is. And acknowledging the horrors that have been wrought on people is a big part of it. And acknowledging that, for those of you who, have the complexion for the protection or used to have the complexion for the protection, your inheritance is all of this. This is your inheritance, right? For the country that we have that has been taking everything from the global south, you have to inherit not only the spoils, but the sins. And you have to atone for them and fight against them, right? And here's the thing, we all do. Because black and brown people are not totally, exonerated because we've had to suffer more, because there is always global positionality and intersectionality of experience. And if you're an American, you're part of the machine, right? Like Baldwin said in JER's amazing video, I'm horrified at the moral apathy. And once people are able to not see other people as humans, that spreads. That's why I always mention that, left out of Martin Niemöller's poem, First They Came For, there's no mention of queer people. And attacking trans people and trans identity, right? And destroying the Institute, that was a predecessor to everything else that happened. And we didn't even make the poem. So, even though we are currently failing at open note test, but we don't have to fail. And I believe strongly that because of the internet, because of our connection to each other, because of our access to history, because of how much faster the people do and can move, we have a shot this time. It's not a guarantee, right? Because their power is great and their evil is great. And we're still catching up to that whole thing where it's like, okay, well, you have to be really nice to people, regardless of who they are and what they do. Good people are still thinking that applies, that those rules apply. When somebody walks up to you and starts stabbing, it's not a time to say, excuse me, friend, I don't think you meant to stab me. That's doing damage to me. That's injuring me. Yeah, could you, no. It's the time to block the arm, take the knife, break the arm off, and put the knife in him. Metaphorically, of course. Metaphorically. Because, of course, I wouldn't condone violence on a public platform. That would be silly. And we don't do silly things here. But we do very, very good things here, like we're going to be doing with you all night on the first of our Black History Month shows. And we're going to be featuring lots of Black artists, of course, like not that we don't always, but and a reminder that Black history is not just the story of the horrors that happened to us, but of constant triumph, of constant innovation. And even within the story of Black history is the sub-story of the Black weirdo and how we really have been the innovators of everything, whether you're talking about Black queer people, Black trans people, Black alt people, everybody, Sister Rosetta Tharpe, who was the inventor of rock and roll, was probably a queer person and was definitely a woman taking over in a time, when everything was really male dominated. Not that it still isn't. Let's keep it a stack, right? The ways that we, even groups like Parliament, Jimi Hendrix, people who have not only broken from the regular standard America, but also broken from standard notions of Blackness and decided to do something different. Because that's where the innovation comes. It's from saying, I like everything that's here, but I can still do better. I can still do different. I can still innovate further. Because adhering to any standard, it's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to innovate. We are the only ones of us that there are. We are the only we there is. And it's our duty, right, to ourselves to bloom into what we are supposed to be. There is no mold that we should be following. None of us. But it is very important to recognize the contributions, the struggles, indeed, of Black folks in this country, because our story is your story. Because our story really is the story of America. In my song, Outside, Toys You've Not Adored, one of the themes is, from outside, we can see what the people inside can't see. We get a wider angle view. And watching America, from within America still, but still outside of it, right? Kept outside because of an accident of birth, of the place that we were born. We get to observe it and see it for what it really is. And as this Pluto return unfolds, y'all are beginning to see it too. And that's where the healing can begin. And that's where we can win. That's where we can bring new joy. That's where we can bring an end to the long nightmare of what has been the American experiment. And that's what I sincerely hope and wish for us all, that we are doing things to bring that about. We're going to talk about that more later on in the show. I want to thank JER at Scottoon Network. Please follow them I didn't do this on purpose, but accidentally, all of our music acts, including myself, are non-binary Black people. So, you know, JER is, and I'm just an amazing guitarist. Love the video. Not guitars, but plays all the instruments. Plays every instrument. Actually, I think maybe guitar is the one. Anyway, multi-instrumentalist, and conceived that video and wrote the songs and just is a tremendous, and is playing all over the country. And reminding folks that, yeah, you know what? Non-binary also comes in Black. Non-binary also comes in bodies that aren't like, you know, thin, waifish, 90-pound AFABs. You know, it is something that comes in all varieties. So let's go straight into our regular segment, which you all know, and I know you all love, the Astrological Weather Report with Alice Pope of Alice Pope Astrology. MYSTRYXX, let's do it.